Okay, so today's autumn budget landed like a bull in a china shop. The headline figures are staggering. We have £30 billion in new taxes by the end of the decade, and this includes, as we all predicted, a freeze on income tax thresholds until 2031, which will drag nearly 1 million more people into the higher rate tax bracket. And even the cost of our electric vehicles and milkshakes are going to be affected. So I'm just going to try and cut through the noise in this video and talk about what matters most for everyday savers. So that's the cut to the cash ISA allowance and the savings tax hike that hits at the exact same moment. But let's quickly recap the budget so we're all on the same page. So like I said, we're looking at a huge shift towards increased taxation with around £30 billion in tax rises over the next few years, which will push the overall burden to a record high of 38.3% of GDP, which means like for every pound, the Treasury takes roughly 38.3 pence in tax. Now, for your personal finances, the key hits are these. Income tax thresholds are frozen until 2031. We have dividends tax rising by 2 percentage points from 2026. And the big one for savers, savings income tax also rises by 2 percentage points across the board from April 2027. So what does that mean? Well, it depends on what rate of tax you pay. For basic rate payers, tax on your interest goes from 20 to 22%, the higher rate from 40 to 42%, and the additional rate from 45 to 47%. Crucially though, the combination of those higher tax rates and those frozen tax bands means more savers will lose their personal savings allowance, leaving more people being exposed to tax on interest. So it's going to be even more crucial to ensure that you're taking advantage of a cash ISA. But unfortunately, the tax grab and spending changes go a lot further, and I'll go quickly through some of the headlines. I'm not going to linger very long here, but we've got electric vehicles tax, like I mentioned, from 2028. So EV drivers are going to face a new pay per mile charge. I think that's set at 3p per mile for fully electric cars. That's to replace fuel duty revenue, which I was so smug about because I recently bought an EV purely to avoid paying fuel duty. Well, Rachel caught up with me on that one. Then there's the mansion tax, and this will be interesting. Homeowners will, with properties valued over £2 million, will face a new high value council tax surcharge from 2028, starting at $2,500 a year. I'm pretty intrigued to see how the valuation of properties will work. That's going to be a really interesting one. And pensions are taking a hit. So the salary sacrifice pension scheme will be squeezed from 2029 with a £2,000 annual cap on contributions that are exempt from NI. On a positive note, I guess, but I imagine still people will have mixed feelings on this, the national living wage will rise quite significantly to £12.71 an hour for those aged 21 and over. That might have an impact on inflation because the cost of doing business or employing people will go up as a result. So businesses may put the prices of their goods up. We'll see what happens there. And the somewhat controversial two-child benefit cap is set to be scrapped from April 2026, which the Labour Party have said will lift more children out of poverty, which isn't a bad thing at all. But through all of this, for people looking to protect their income and savings, two changes dominate: the cash ISA allowance cut and the rise in savings income tax. So let's get to the most controversial change first, the cut to the cash ISA allowance. So from the 6th of April 2027, the annual deposit limit for a cash ISA will be cut from £20,000 to £12,000. The crucial thing here is that this reduction only applies to savers aged 65 and under. Over 65s will keep the full £20,000 cash allowance. But, and this is critical, the limit for stocks and shares ISA remains at £20,000 for all ages. And the government says that this is to encourage more people to invest in UK assets, which, we could argue about that because, some people will say British savers are risk averse and not Warren Buffett and will be too frightened to invest. So as a result, they'll just end up with greater tax liability on their savings. And I think over the next few years, it's going to be really important for the government to double down on financial education to try and inform people about the various products, investing products that are available like ETFs, equities, and government-backed securities. They need to show people the long-term gains that can be made from investing instead of just leaving cash deposited to be eaten away by inflation. I think only then will people be, less frightened about the risks of investing and possibly will take advantage of these stocks and shares ISAs, but the people who choose not to, I mean, they'll just end up with their money not sheltered, and that will just lead to a double tax whammy. Because just think about the timing here, right? At the exact moment the tax-free cash ISA space is shrinking, the tax on their regular non-ISA savings is going up by 2 percentage points. So this means more and more of our hard-earned interest will just be eaten up by more tax. So this makes holding cash outside of an ISA even less attractive, especially for higher rate taxpayers. And look, if you're not yet taking advantage of an ISA, definitely check depositscout.com. We try to update the table frequently and list the most competitive and compelling rates available, including this one from Moneybox. So I'll put a link to Deposit Scout in the description box below. But one question I had that I wanted to bring up, because this is a potential cheat code, right? If the stocks and shares ISA allowance stays at 20,000, what's stopping us from opening one, depositing the full 20K, and just holding it as cash? Because right now with providers like Trading 212, for example, they allow you to earn 4.06% on uninvested cash. And that could be a perfectly legal loophole to maintain £20,000 of cash in a tax-free wrapper. I'm pretty sure though, in 2 years when this becomes real, that HMRC will look to close this. But right now, as it stands, what's stopping us from doing that? This isn't something we have to worry about right now. For today, I think your action plan depends on your age, and this isn't financial advice, it's just simply meant as discussion, but I think the urgency to act is high. First, if you're under 65, do consider taking advantage of your £20,000 cash ISA allowance in this tax year and the next year, so that's 2026-27. Do this while you still can. After that, we have to be prepared to use the stocks and shares ISA to invest and utilize the full £20,000 allowance, which to be fair is still, comparatively to most countries, quite generous. Secondly, for over 65s, you keep your full 20K cash ISA allowance, but the rising savings tax still means you should aim to move any taxable non-ISA cash into a tax-free wrapper. You've just got to make sure you're taking full advantage of that £20,000 threshold. And again, check out depositscout.com for some options. On the political side of things, well, the bigger picture here is that Rachel Reeves ended her budget speech by declaring, I thought this was funny, that she'd announced all these tax rises while keeping every single one of her manifesto commitments. But the reaction, if you're just looking through the news outlets, has been brutal. She's been accused of delivering a budget of broken promises and left us with a giant £30 billion tax raid. And the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Mel Stride, her Conservative counterpart, has said it's clear she has broken her manifesto. And I think he has a point. Like, come on. When you impose higher income tax rates on savers, landlords, and freeze thresholds for longer, you are actively increasing the tax burden on working people. And this budget isn't about cutting taxes to spur growth. It's the opposite. It's about pushing taxes to record levels to pay for record levels of government spending when we desperately need more cuts. And honestly, I think this will stall the economy and just punish people who work hard and try to save responsibly. But that's the thought for another day. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. And again, I'll put a link to Deposit Scout in the description box for anyone that's looking to get a cash ISA. Speak to you soon and take care.